Okay, so tell me, have you been keeping up much with these Ohio elections?
On and off. I started looking a little bit into the primaries a couple weeks ago when I think I actually first learned about JD Vance on Kimmel when they made a joke about him calling Trump an idiot and then Trump endorsing him and all that. So I started looking into it then. Finals and college has not allowed me to look into it as much as I would like, but I think this is a very, I'm sure I said this the last time I was on your show, and I've said this to many people before, that 2022 is going to be a very interesting year election-wise, with and without Trump. It's just going to be very interesting, and the elections are going to be very close, knowing that the Senate is 50-50 and the House is less than 10 seats away from losing a majority.
Yeah, and it's brutal. Just it's not looking good for for Democrats, and it's crazy. I mentioned on one of my videos recently the fact that a party could go through and be responsible for what the Republican Party did, and then within in 2020, and then within 2 years be viable to take back power in either chamber is nuts. Like, I don't know if you remember this, but right after January 6th, all the pundits were like, this is the end of the Republican Party as we know it. It's going to be Democratic rule for a super long time because this January 6th business scarred them so bad, and they're going to split into two factions, the pro-Trump and the anti-Trump, and it's going to be, too divided to ever create a coalition to defeat Democrats. But no, within, a year, or not even, with a few months, they had sorted it all out. Half of them were saying that January 6th was an FBI organized event, and half of them were saying that January 6th was a bunch of patriots, and they somehow get along still and are going to likely beat the Democrats. That's pretty crazy.
I'm sure one of us is a lot happier about the coming election results than the other.
I should mention, this buffoon on the phone is a Republican, so everyone should... No, I'm kidding. He is, but he's not a buffoon. Yet. I don't know. Our last conversation was quite reasonable, but I think you're hiding things from me.
No, I am hiding away from camera because I look incredibly awful today. So there are no political reasons behind that besides I am not wearing a good outfit and my face looks like crap.
Oh, no. I didn't mean you're hiding from me visually.
But you know what? I'm not running for political office, so I don't need my face shown.
Yeah, no worries on that.
Obviously we're going to differ a little bit about it. I obviously will congratulate JD Vance on winning that, that primary, and as well we'll congratulate as we see the people that win the Democratic primaries. I think a state like Indiana, I'm going to start with Indiana, it's not one that needs to be paid attention to as much as Ohio. Indiana, for presidential standards as of the past, decade or two, has been relatively Republican. Ohio, however, could flip at any election. I have recently been to Ohio this year, and you could tell one city was, the Columbus itself was pretty blue, and then I was in some suburbs surrounding Columbus as well, and they were actually turning red. And I think what we, as, Republicans are uniting behind is that, at least in my opinion, President Biden and the Democratic leadership not only are not fulfilling campaign promises to the best of their ability, but almost aren't even, in my opinion, competent enough to be in power. I think something that we both agreed on, I think when we talked in March, Luke, was that 80-year-olds should not be in charge of the country. I I still believe that. I don't entirely think 80-year-olds know what the best thing for the country is. And,
So
I just think that the Republicans we have a lot to unite behind.
yeah. So okay, wait.
We were able.
Let me jump in. Here's my question. If this is what confuses me about Republicans who say that, not the 80-year-old thing. Yeah, I mean, there's very competent 80-year-olds, but Biden is not
But
one.
Biden is not one.
Yeah, so like Bernie
had a
for
conversation.
nope.
Go ahead.
Bernie, for example, I also think it's a little late for him to run again. I don't think he should personally, even though, of course, like I like his policies. I think it's past time. I don't know if you saw that story that came out about him still considering a third time. But point is, you watch him, he's older than Biden and much sharper. So it's not just age, it's more how sharp you are. But so set that aside.
Bernie Sanders is an outlier. He's going to live to be 172 years old.
Totally
and
agree. That's why,
how it's
exactly.
gonna be.
That's, yes. And he's going to be pushing for the same dang policies that he was pushing for in the 1930s. But you set that aside. I don't understand when Republicans say Biden didn't follow through on his campaign promises. Okay. And what did Republicans do to help him at all? They purposefully blocked every single one of his campaign promises from getting through. Now, so did Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema, and that's what it came down to. So I blame them also. But it's not like you saw an effort by Republicans to help him get his campaign promises passed. So why would you want to put Republicans in power? Wouldn't it be more logical if he wasn't able to get his agenda passed with his current level of power because it wasn't enough to get more, even though I'm upset that he didn't do enough as well? Wouldn't it make more sense to get more Democrats in power who agree with his agenda if you are upset that he didn't follow through on his promises?
No, because the reason the Republicans are trying to stop Biden's agenda is because all the Biden agenda is to undo the Trump agenda.
Oh, please.
Which, in my opinion...
You know that's not true. Build Back Better is not undoing anything. It's just building. Kidding.
The first 18 executive orders Biden signed on his first day, more than 10 of which were undoing Trump policies.
I agree with you.
Let's look at one of the biggest Trump policies he undid,
Mm-hmm.
the southern border. I live on the southern border right now. I can tell you that. I live in San Diego. And, I can tell you there's a lot more nervousness about harm coming from cartels, not caravans of immigrants seeking asylum. That's completely different. They're separate things. We're not trying to stop immigration into the United States. We're trying to stop harmful immigration. And the Democrats and media are trying to make us look like white supremacist racists that don't want anybody darker than olive skin in this country. I disagree with that. I think as far as the border, Biden undid that policy, and our southern border is a mess. I've been to the southern border multiple times.
Biden undid what policy?
He undid policies that Trump had put in that were keeping America safe. I personally agreed with the Remain in Mexico policy, which Biden had to reinstate. Biden stopped the building of the southern wall, which was showing progress in more peace at the border. He put Kamala Harris in charge of the border, and regardless of what we think of her, when I found out she had COVID, and except for Easter, that was the first time in months I had seen Kamala Harris do anything.
True.
It's like, no, yeah, I know.
But going back, let me press you on the border. The biggest issue that progressives have, or not the biggest, but one of the issues they've had with him is he's been very, very similar to Trump on the border. The big thing that he stopped doing, which had already been halted by court order at the end of Trump's administration, was the child separation policy, which I think most reasonable people think, hey, we can come up with a way to manage our border without traumatizing children. I think that's reasonable. He stopped that. He's talking about, and this will be something that I'm in favor of, that I understand that you're not, and that's something we could just leave at that. The Title 42 change, but that hasn't happened yet. And then the border wall, that was making no change. I mean, like, he hadn't built enough of it for it to be blocking anyone. They can just go around it right now. I mean, if you theoretically that may have helped, blah, blah, blah. I don't actually have that strong of feelings on the border wall. I think it's just a bad image and a waste of money, but I'm sure, would be fine. But right now it isn't long enough to do any sort of, or make any sort of impact on the border. So Biden has been remarkably similar to Trump on the border. And that's unfortunate.
After realizing for months that Trump's policies actually were keeping peace. As far as the child separation,
at the beginning,
morally,
though,
we can't support that. I mean, go back and look at a lot of what Biden ran on and a lot of what he wanted to do. Biden has slowly
and he lied.
In my opinion, he has always been relatively center, which is why I would have preferred him over Bernie or Elizabeth Warren or any of them. I just believe that Biden he's had to go, depending on his policies, more to the center and more to the left. We can leave the border at that, because I want to touch on something that you had talked about, that you had mentioned before, on why don't we get more Democrats in office so we can pass Biden's agenda.
Yeah.
Now, Republicans are not the ones blocking his Build Back Better agenda. It is the progressive wing in the Democratic Party. No, it is. The Democratic Party is more split than the Republicans were on January 6th as of right now. And that's not entirely the Democrats' fault. I think in no other Western country would Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, and AOC be in the same party.
All right, you gotta let me respond to that. Holy smokes. So, yummy. I love whenever just you hand me a knock out of the park. Biden's Build Back Better.
He couldn't pass the bill he wanted because not enough Democrats would support it.
Yes, and Biden's Build Back Better agenda is exactly what progressives undeniably supported. They would vote for that bill as was proposed. Then Manchin, Sinema said, we don't support this. So they kept whittling it down. And then progressives still said they would support it. All they asked is, hey, the promise that was made months ago, that we would link the what they called hard infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the Build Back Better bill. Those have to pass in tandem. That promise was made so early in the process, but we still support Build Back Better. And then Manchin and Sinema and progressives caved on that, let the bipartisan bill get passed, still support to this day Build Back Better as is currently sitting, and Manchin and Sinema don't support it, and that's what's caused it to die. There's no world in which you could bend yourself into a noodle to blame progressives for the Build Back Better's failure.
I'm sure you would love this to happen, what I'm about to say. Manchin and Sinema would lose their re-election bids for 22, and I honestly could not tell you when Sinema's up for re-election. I really don't remember.
24.
I believe Manchin is either up this year or next year. They both up in 24?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Manchin and Sinema would absolutely lose re-election if they supported those bills.
Oh my gosh. Okay, stop it.
This is very large... No. I handed you, now you handed me a response, my turn. So, Manchin and Sinema, as I said, would lose re-election. What they are, I wouldn't say they're completely listening to their constituents, but they are also, let's keep in mind, you're not elected to serve Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden's agenda. You're elected technically to listen to your constituents. So if anything, in your party, Manchin and Sinema are doing more of what their actual constitutional job is than what everyone else is doing.
Okay.
And you know what? If you had...
Hold up.
If there was enough support in the Democratic Party to pass your infrastructure bills and your Build Back Better bills, it would have been passed in the summer, and it wouldn't... You know what I mean? It would have been passed a very long time ago.
Okay, so wait. First of all, I will give you somewhat of an olive branch. I'll give you an olive twig. Manchin can get away and has gotten away with blocking legislation that is otherwise popular in his state, because his state picks up on the veneer of him being super moderate and against all these crazy progressives. And they don't like, for I believe mostly social issues, they don't like the more like AOCs, because they are socially conservative. It's a very red state, and his popularity has gone up, I think, in the last few months. So agree sort of there. Now, before we set Joe Manchin aside, like we talked about in our last discussion, Build Back Better still was popular in West Virginia. So while I don't think it hurt him to block it, it would not have hurt him to support it. He just would have had to make sure to do very public stunts where he calls out the left wing about stuff, about whatever it is, being too woke. That's, to me, what West Virginians like about Joe Manchin, is he's this Democrat who bucks up against the wild, radical, progressive wing. But when you ask them about a particular legislation, when you ask them about a particular piece of legislation, they actually support it. So it wouldn't hurt Joe Manchin if he kept that veneer of being sort of against them, and he could negotiate the bill way down and still get that thing. Now, Kirsten Sinema, and then I'm handing you the mic. She has dropped in popularity dramatically. She is so unpopular in Arizona right now, and it is perfectly tied to every time she very publicly went against Biden's Build Back Better / the $15 minimum wage dramatic little thumbs down thing. So there, you just can't even deny that she's lost insane amount of approval in the state of Arizona for being so against Biden's agenda, because Arizona is more like liberal, you know, so more of a blue state than West Virginia. And that's just an undeniable fact. Go ahead. Sorry.
You know, I think Arizona is a very interesting state in that, as far as minimum, I'm not going to comment on the minimum wage, but, or really what she thinks about the Build Back Better plan. Arizona is an interesting state. A year ago today, and especially 2 years ago today, she would have had more popularity opposing these bills. What is happening is that a lot of people from California, especially, these are millions, are moving out of state to places like Arizona and Texas. And this is why you see, maybe at this point, a couple months ago, maybe she didn't lose as much popularity, but now she does, because the state is slowly becoming more, I'm brain dead on the word, popularized. I'm so sorry, I'm brain dead on the word. The state is slowly being
populated.
Filled with people that populated. Yeah, you know, I kind of circled around it, and I got
you were close.
It's been a long week, and it's only Tuesday.
No problem.
Now, it's slowly being populated with more left-leaning citizens, and so I think there might be a shift as far as cinema is concerned. But I will say, as far as Manchin is concerned, you don't see that as much. You don't really see it at all.
Mm-mm.
There's not, you know.
Just to make sure. Oh, sorry, you cut out for a second.
No, go ahead.
Just to make sure we put the cap, you agreed, but showing a graph on my stream, she started up at 60%, went all the way up to like, it looks like near 70%. And then the minimum wage, big debacle, dropped her down to below 40%. And then this marks, and then in between there continued to drop in that all Build Back Better stuff, and then had another big drop when she skipped the January 6th commission vote. And now she's all the way down to 8% favorability in Arizona. So yeah, I think we capped that one. But
I honestly
I agree with you on Joe Manchin.
On her, because I don't know the standard of living in Arizona. So as far as, and cost of living as well. So as far as like $15 minimum wages, you know, in Arizona, maybe it would work in Phoenix, maybe in Flagstaff in the bigger cities, but definitely not in most of the state. Granted, most of the state is just a desert that is uninhabitable. So, you know, I can't really comment much on on what specifically cinema has lost popularity in, just because I don't know the cost of living in Arizona like I do in California or like you do in Texas.
But going all the way back to the important, what got us on this and the important thing, as a Republican yourself, I wasn't sure what you were going to say about the 2022 midterms, but it sounds like you want Republicans to take
Hopefully
power.
I'll lose. That's all I'm saying.
And what did you say?
I said, hopefully you guys lose and my party wins. That's what I say about it.
Okay, so with that being said,
But I think anyone that belongs to any political party can say that.
You're right, but I'm interested in that because most Republicans would say everything that Biden proposed, or most of what Biden proposed, Build Back Better, all that type of stuff, bad, horrible, terrible. And then, as you mentioned, which I forgot to respond to, the executive order comment, that just happens. When another president gets to power, they use their executive authority as an individual, that they can do by themselves without any congressional support, to move the pendulum back in the direction of the party that they're the head of. That's natural, but that's not the big accomplishments of any presidential administration. What they're trying to put on their legacy report card is huge legislation, and that's the stuff that got blocked by Republicans as well as Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. So the question to you is, what are you excited about Republicans getting in power to do? If one of the complaints you have with Joe Biden is he didn't follow through on his promises. Well, if you wish that he followed through on his promises, why would you want the party who actively prevented him from accomplishing those promises to be in power? That makes zero sense to me.
There's a lot of President Biden's agenda that I don't want passed. I just really feel like it's not coming from him or from a Democratic agenda, where it's more coming from an anti-Trump agenda. Biden won in 2020 as an anti-Trump candidate. That's why he won. That's why Trump won in 2016. People hated Hillary so much that electorally more states saw Donald Trump as the lesser of two evils. In 2020, tons of Democrats that I talked to had explained to me, we don't love Biden, but we hate him less than we hate Trump, and he's just the easier one to vote for. So that's how Biden won. And I think for the next few elections, that's how it's going to be, is which one do we hate less? There was a joke that Michael Che from Saturday Night Live did where he said, I've never heard anybody say, I like them both. And I laugh about that. Anyway, I just wish, obviously, whether he's a Democrat or Republican, I wish that President Biden, and I hope President Biden has a better remainder of his term than he has. I think.
But what would make it better? How could it possibly get better if Republicans controlled the House or Senate or both? How would that help anything? Tell me, what you foresee the Republican Party doing. A national CRT ban? Is that your hope? What are they going to do? What is, besides you being a Republican and them calling themselves Republican, you both use the same label, what's a thing you look forward to Republicans doing if they were to get into power in 2022?
I legitimately believe that there will be more cooperation in Congress with the divided government. If Biden wants to get his agenda passed, he can't just pass whatever he wants. He can't really do it now, but in a Republican in a Republican House or Senate or both, they're obviously not going to want everything that Biden wants to be passed. The problem that I had with Biden's infrastructure bills, or not infrastructure bills, but mainly the Build Back Better, and they were trying to throw in everything into one bill because they didn't know if they had, or they didn't think they had enough time to pass everything. I really do believe that if Biden took his agenda and broke it up, I'm just going to pick numbers, and let's just say these are the 5 biggest things that if Biden passes between 2021 and 2025, that's what he'll be remembered for, right? Let's say if he took a minimum wage alone, right? I think there would be a lot more cooperation in Congress with Republicans. Something that some people don't necessarily understand is that no matter how great or how horrible the bill is, a price tag as large as it is just looks scary. And like we talked about in the last debate, everyday Americans don't understand, yeah, but this is just a bunch of things someone would do in 5 years and what, right? So you got to look at what the average voter is going to say. And I think, I'm not saying one party is more in tune with the average voters, but I just think the Republicans are being a little bit more pragmatic, whether they're outward about it or not.
So, okay. Let's name one of those. What's one of the things, or I'll list off some, not to put you on the spot, and then if you support any of these, let me know. And I think we talked about last time, Medicare expansion to dental, hearing, and vision. Do you believe in your heart of hearts that, let's say the Senate was now 51-50 and Republicans had the 51. You believe that Republicans would pass a standalone bill giving Biden a success in his administration for a bill that expanded Medicare to dental, hearing, and vision?
Yeah, and I could tell you exactly who I think would vote for it. Yeah.
That's just crazy. Unbelievable. Impossible. I have not seen a Republican speak out in support of any aspect of Biden's agenda besides the bipartisan infrastructure bill that was the most friendly to all sides bill I've ever seen.
Because it's never going to be reported. No one is ever going to report it.
Have you noticed how obsessed, how like much, especially like left media, like more liberal media, obsesses and salivates over bipartisanship? Oh, bipartisanship, the bipartisan infrastructure bill is so amazing. Well, what's in it? It doesn't matter. It's bipartisan.
Nothing that has been passed in the Biden administration maybe technically is defined as bipartisan, but I don't consider bipartisan.
The infrastructure bill got over 60 votes, right?
Not in the Senate. Didn't get that many in the Senate.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I could be corrected. That honestly was a very long time ago. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and fine, you're the first Republican ever admit that he was wrong. I just don't. I think that, especially the liberal media, the closer you get to MSNBC and CNN, I think that they're not reporting what I would consider news anymore or political news. I think you say that they get all giddy and are obsessed with bipartisanship, and I think that Jake Tapper and who's the German one, Wolf Blitzer, get hard and cream their jeans when Trump says anything that they can shit on. Excuse my French.
So obviously
the media is so anti. It's very divided, and I'm not gonna point fingers at whose fault it is.
The left. It's just absolutely undeniable that pretty much all media, but especially media left of center, is obsessed with covering Trump because it's very good for views, very good for ratings. It keeps eyeballs on the screen. I don't disagree with you on that.
I mean, when Trump dies within the next 10, 20 years, what are they going to report?
Yeah. I loved, I don't know if you saw the White House Correspondents' Dinner, but
I did.
Trevor Noah,
I will say I found it funny.
Yeah, Trevor Noah was like, MSNBC, whenever Trump was in power, they reported on the bad things that Trump was doing, and now they're reporting on the bad things that Trump's doing. Like all they cover is Trump. And it's a good point. I mean, he's also the most powerful figure in the Republican Party as far as influence over the base goes. So I think it's important to cover him. But I agree with you generally. I'm still dumbfounded, but we can, I guess, move past it. No, we're not.
There's a phrase we haven't used that I think in opposing parties we can use it, agree to disagree. That's why there are different political parties. That's why we have factions in this country. We have differing opinions. We can agree to disagree, and we can move on.
But, I agree with you as a concept. On this particular discussion, though, I just must know, when you lay in bed at night and you're like, whew, the Republicans are probably going to win this November. I agree with you that a lot of politics now is anti. So it's like, I'm against Trump, thus I vote for Biden, or I'm against Biden, so I vote for Trump. But me personally, I was like, I don't want Trump to be in power, so I'm voting against him. And also, I like some of the things that Biden's proposed. I like a lot of the things that Biden's proposing. So I'm voting for him and against him. What would you be voting for? What is it a Republican Congress in an ideal world would do that you enjoy? Or is it just like, I think they'll moderate Biden, sort of?
I really do think that they'll moderate Democratic agendas, and this is not just because Biden is in power. I would rather have a divided government with both parties in the two legislative branches. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. English is a very fluid language. No, I would rather have, for example, a Republican Congress and a blue White House and vice versa, because to get stuff done, it looks better for both parties to relatively cooperate and get stuff done. You know, I think something that would have to happen to pass a Democratic agenda is that I think you guys got to unite a little bit closer on something that is not anti-Trump.
Okay, I agree that the Democratic Party is anti-Trump, but also I don't get this notion that that's all their like, literally, I'm telling you, two votes, Build Back Better is able to be passed in the House, and everyone in the Senate supports it except for 2 senators. And that is a bill that has nothing to do with Trump and would dramatically change the socioeconomic, landscape of the United States. So I don't understand, all they're doing is sitting there and thinking about Trump. Yes, he is a huge threat in the Democratic Party's mind to many things. So they're going to focus on him. Also, they have this agenda that's being blocked by 2 people. I'm sure there's others who don't support it secretly, but they pretend that they support it. But they
don't support it, but they'll lose re-election if they don't.
Anti-people. I didn't get what you, I just meant I'm sure there's moderate Democrats. Oh, I get what you're saying. Exactly. Yeah. And so 2 members of our party are holding up an amazing, completely unrelated to Trump piece of legislation that even you agree would do a lot of positive change in the country. Why wouldn't you want to give a few more votes to that party so that they can pass this overwhelmingly popular piece of legislation?
Because I think that puts a monopoly on power, which is something that we shouldn't have, we don't need, and we don't want.
But you already agreed that the Democratic Party is super divided, and they're like 2 parties or 3 parties smushed into one. So is that enough?
So you're going to elect more people that are just going to put the party in grid? You are doing this based on, I think, a lot of things that both sides are doing. We're both going off of hope here.
We're both going off what?
Hope.
Hope.
You are hoping that the Democrats would win, and there's enough either progressives that win or moderates that win, that there's 50 moderate, whether there's 99 or 51 Democrats in the Senate. You just hope there are at least 50, 51 that can agree on something. And you're hoping that in the House there's 220, I'll pick that number, that will agree on something in the House, right? It's
they already
not...
did.
Well,
They passed it.
Pelosi call a vote for it and pass it.
They did.
If they've agreed for it,
They did.
call a vote.
They did. It passed. It just didn't pass the Senate.
Send it to the Senate. If you think it has enough support in the Democratic Party, call a vote and do it.
Right. So my question is, if we agree overall it's a really good piece of legislation, then why wouldn't we try to get... So right now, 2 votes is holding up this piece of legislation. Instead of some weird abstract notion of, I think it's good to have 2 parties evenly split so that the Congress can't do anything, why not give 2 extra votes to the Senate? Like, if we could just control it with our mind. And now all of a sudden they would be able to pass, not on a wing and a prayer, but because that's what's holding it up currently, this piece of legislation that's overwhelmingly popular and would do really good in the country. Instead of, I don't want to do that because monopoly.
Okay, I'll give you another one. I'm not going to talk much about Sinema because I honestly don't know if she could win the next re-election. I haven't looked at her polls, but if it's really an 8% approval rating, well, then you got bigger problems than her trying to, push it. Manchin has a pretty good shot as of right now. I would think he has a pretty good shot at re-election.
Yes.
His constituents like him. West Virginia as a whole likes him. I don't support a lot of his policies, but I do like him, not because he is trying to kill this bill, but I like him because he's a moderate. I think let's say we control it with our minds, right? Like you said, you're going to pull Manchin out of office so you can pass your agenda, but you wouldn't be pulling him out of office because that's what his constituents want.
I don't mean pull him out of, just to be clear, and then you can continue. I don't mean pull him out of office. I mean get enough votes in the Senate where he can't single-handedly hold up that legislation. Because I agree, he's very popular.
You gotta start campaigning.
No,
I guess you gotta start campaigning.
No, but I'm asking you. I'm saying if it's something that would do good in the country. Are you still there? Oh, we lost him. Hopefully that was inadvertent. That would be awkward if we had a hang-up situation. Oh, no, it was a technology problem. Hold up, everybody. We'll get... Get them back on ASAP. What are y'all thinking so far? Let me see your comments. I see that there's people watching, but I'm not seeing too many comments. I'm sure you're just entranced. What are y'all thinking so far? Hey. Hold up.
I don't know if this works.
Oh, there you go. Can you hear me?
What a way to censor my free speech, Luke. I really am.
I know, it was funny.
I am embarrassed for you.
You went, well, you should get to campaigning, boom, and it cut off. And I was like, dang.
Oh, man, no, I shouldn't have joined back. I yield the rest of my time. I want to finish. Let it be known, Democratic political commentator Luke Beasley purposely kicked a Republican opponent off in an effort to... that was great. What great timing, though. That was funny.
I think that's a sign from the universe. We have beat this horse enough. So, on a different note, what is since obviously it's like, can we stop talking about Trump? And you have some vague, I think, misinformed views on what the Republican Party really stands for. What is your...
And I think you have some vague, misinformed views on pretty much everything your party wants to pass, but let's move on.
Okay, fair. I mean, it's totally fine. You can be wrong. It's something you can be in this country.
Hey, I'm not the, well, you're not the one whose free speech was just canceled, so I'm a little hurt. I come a little strong.
So here's my question. Let me search this up so that I can okay, so quote.
That's a great topic. That's a really interesting topic.
I always say that in case I want to release things as podcasts, I don't like just going silent for a super long time because I want people to be able to, know that their podcast didn't turn off or something. So then I just make random noise. So from Forbes, quote, nearly half of Republicans voters call the January 6th riot, quote, legitimate protest. So what is your feeling on the Republican Party, Trump coming back? Does that not scare you? Like, is it not like, okay, we can suspend your views on the economy or some social issues or whatever for a number of years until, like, right now, all your focus should be keeping the bonkers peeps out of power, even though you wish that, like, the Mitt Romneys could run the world?
I will say, I would actually wish that Steve Harvey would run the world, but no, I'm kidding.
The what?
That Steve Harvey would be a much better candidate. It would just be more entertaining.
It would. And people who are running these days, he would be qualified.
Next time you see me on a Zoom, I'm gonna have a Steve Harvey mustache. I'm gonna be the white Steve Harvey. I'm telling you that.
Huh. There we go.
No, that's not at all going to happen. I can't grow a mustache as beautiful as that. But anyway, I'm so sorry. What was the question?
Okay. I want to know, do you feel like the Republican Party is in such a bad place as and I think even very moderate people think? And the quote that I read was nearly half of Republican voters called January 6th a legitimate protest. The riot specifically going into the Capitol. And does it not feel like to you, it's a little weird to be like, hey, I'm going to keep voting for Republicans because I kind of like this little thing or this little thing, and risk having the Marjorie Taylor Greenes be the ruling kind of central force in our country?
Well, she might not be there for much longer after, but
that brand.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I don't think, I honestly can't remember much of January 6th. It was so long ago. I just think although January 6th was a very dark day for the nation, where I think it was more than a legitimate protest. I don't think it was a legitimate protest. I try and think, you know what, and this is with a lot of things. We've had to do this with one of my relatives, may she rest in peace. How this happened is a very dark stain. How can we move on as a party, as a country? And my opinion, no, I'm not scared about it. I think that whether Republicans outwardly say it was a protest, whether they say whatever, we've seen a lot of in the past few days, they say outwardly one thing and inwardly another. That's politics.
But
it has happened I'm not worried about it because I think that it's time, especially now a year and a half after, it's time for the country to move past that. Say, yes, that was a horrible day.
But I agree with you. I agree with you that we should move past it. But your party, like a majority of your party, doesn't want to. They want to go riot again. I mean, saying like, not actually, but in their minds, that riot was justified because the election was stolen, and they believe, like one of the polls I saw was a large percent of Republicans think that violence is justified because the country has gotten so out of hand. And like, I just, okay, this is what confuses me, because I've had conversations with other Republican friends of mine, and they just keep going back to kind of the typical Reagan idea of conservatism, which I disagree with, but don't find, I'm not going to impulsively barf.
Between Reagan or Trump, I'm fine with either. Just pick which one you want, we'll debate it.
Wait. There's a huge difference between, like, Reagan, we differ on politics. Trump, we differ on foundational principles of truth and like values and more like a moral set of beliefs.
I agree, 100%. There are two different debates that we could have. Two is equally civil and fiery debates you could have.
No, but I guess what I'm asking though, if you said you're not concerned, but there was a plan to send an alternate slate of electors to Washington and have Mike Pence. Now, he stood against this, which was admirable, despite all of his prior issues, including not being able to go anywhere where there's women without his mama. But if he had gone along,
Mike Pence's mama, are you referring to Karen Pence or Mike Pence's actual mother?
His wife, he calls like mom or something. But
yeah, no, I was referencing that joke. Okay. He calls her mother.
Yeah, exactly, mother. That's what it was.
I mean, I am a Gen Zer. That is funny. Like,
it's funny, but if he had gone along with it, the plan was that was all laid out, and people went to Washington to be alternate electors. They were going to say these votes that were officially certified in all these states, we don't believe that they're legitimate. It was fraudulent, and we picked these rando other people who are all quote unquote alternate electors, and that would have flung us into a constitutional crisis where the vice president refused to certify the election, which is just kind of a ceremonial role, and the legitimate means through the judicial system and through the state legislatures of picking our president are completely ignored, and we would have had, who knows, the military, are they going to drag Trump out of office, or it wasn't technically certified, so does Trump stay in office? And that would have caused a democratic meltdown. I hope everyone, even Republicans, would agree with that, even if they're like, yeah, I want that meltdown to happen because it was actually stolen. So are you just fine rolling the dice that Republicans try that again next time they lose? And maybe it succeeds and they have a coup?
Here's the thing. As well as being a Republican, I'm a constitutionalist. And this also comes in with being Jewish. I have faith. And this is not like I have faith that the world will look like the Lucky Charms box. No, there's a difference. I am a constitutionalist. I don't think that January 6th was a constitutional crisis. I think the Constitution did what it was supposed to do. The Constitution was set in place. The reason it wasn't successful is because we have a Constitution like that. Part of what is in the Constitution is so many checks upon checks and balances upon balances of power. The checks and balances of power were enacted on January 6th. Later than they should have been, but they were.
Because Pence didn't go against them. He very well could have, and I'm not saying that would have made it Trump stay president, but it would have caused a complete and utter crisis. And regardless of if you think that our institutions are strong enough to defend against that, which is iffy, it worked this, it withheld this time. The fact that it's not crazy, it's not worth abandoning your party that a sizable portion literally wants to go around democracy to get where they want to go. Even if you don't think it's going to work, you have to admit that's what they wanted. That's what they attempted to do, even though it failed. That's not a party that, even if I agreed with their stance on, I don't know, gun control, I still would not be able to ever cast a vote for them, because I would rather keep a democracy where I don't love the person in power than, dissolve the democracy just so I can have my ideal candidate.
I think that that's just the pessimist opinion of it. I think we need to have more confidence in, before we even debate anything politically, the political parties, whoever is president, whoever runs for president, these primaries, none of it matters if you don't even have any faith or confidence in our Constitution and in our country.
Which your party doesn't.
Frankly, no. If anything, still a majority of my party does. I have not once said, and you can go back to the other debate we had, I would like you to find the video clip where I said that I think January 6th was fabulous, and that
I don't think you think that.
Yeah. I'm just making that clear before I go on.
Okay.
I said I'm a constitutionalist. A constitution so weak as one we supposedly have does not last almost we're going on 250 years, soon to be later this century, 300 years. I really do believe that January 6th was a sort of riot. I don't think it should have happened. I'm not going to debate that because we agree on that, and we'll just be saying the same thing, right?
We totally would, but I'm not focusing on. I'm not at all focusing on the right. Yeah, go for it.
I think that where you are coming from are hypothetical situations that did not happen, and to prevent them from happening again, we need to move forward as one.
So let me give you a hypothetical. I shoot my friend, and I'm trying to kill them.
Oh, he shot his friend. Arrest him.
Arrest me. And the police come and they say, you were trying to kill your friend. You shot him right in the chest. Now it somehow missed his heart and he's going to survive. And then they say, we're going to have to prosecute you because first of all, you hurt him. But separate from that, the reason that attempted murder is bad is because murder is bad. And you attempted to do something really bad. So we have to punish you for that, and we have to prevent you from doing that bad thing successfully in the future. If I said to them, y'all are just talking about hypotheticals. Come on, I didn't actually kill him. Jeez, why do you think I'm going to do that in the future? That would be nonsense. It's similar here. Like, yes, they didn't successfully overturn the results of the election, but they tried. I'm not talking about the rioters. They did too, but that's not who I'm talking about, because I agree. You could get 1,000 people to do whatever. Okay. I'm talking about...
The rioters are being tried currently and have been incarcerated.
Right. I'm talking about the plan concocted by Trump and his allies to have alternate electors, have Mike Pence recognize them instead of the ones that were officially sent to Washington as the actual electors. And call them the actual ones and pretend that Trump won, even though he literally didn't. And so if that was successful, so the analogy is, if I had murdered them, that would be bad. If that was successful, that would be terrible. So the attempt is terrible. And I would, for example, in the murder scenario, and like if it wasn't me, I would never, ever associate with someone, even if I thought they're an amazing person, if they try to kill someone. I'm never going to associate with a party that attempted to overturn a democratic election that I think we both established was legitimate. Maybe we disagree on how much quote unquote irregularities there, but I think overall you agree it was not like a stolen election or anything. So you can't, I don't think you can support a party regardless of how much you like their policies in principle that wanted to do something as bad as overturn a democratic election. And I'm not talking about the rioters. I'm talking about the scheme to appoint alternate electors and call Trump the winner.
Regardless of what the scheme was, it didn't go through. Now,
I didn't successfully murder someone.
If you would like them to be tried, and if the country would like them to be tried, then have our judicial system take place and try them. You currently have all three parts of government that political parties matter in. So if you would like to open investigations and try these people, do it. Regardless of what I think, I would rather support, and this is what I'll say about these midterms too, if Democrats do win, regardless of what I think, whatever the outcome is whatever the outcome is. And we have, like I said, and I'll say this about January 6th, we have to accept the outcome and move forward. You are trying the people in courts right now and are currently incarcerating them. I don't know how far through the process we are, but what our system is taking place. What you are saying about if you tried to murder someone and didn't succeed and you would go to court, that's happening.
The rioters, yes, not the ones who tried to actually steal the election through the Mike Pence route.
Did they steal the election?
Did I murder someone?
Did they steal the election? No.
Should I still be tried because I tried to?
An investigation was opened against you. Open an investigation against them. Okay. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying do. I'm neutral on it. If they want to open an investigation, that's fine. You know, I really believe that we need to get back to a different, I'm not saying go back to the past. I'm saying we need to change surrounding our party over one person or one failed election. And we need to get back to supporting it based off of the ideals. That's why I am a Republican. Not because of Trump, but because I'm sticking to my guns. And if I lose, I lose. In 1932, when the Great Depression was getting worse and about to be the worst it's ever been, Herbert Hoover, the president at the time up for re-election, didn't care whether he won or lost. Of course he would have wanted to win. And of course he didn't want Roosevelt to defeat him and go into office. But he decided that his ideals were more important to stick to than sticking to a position. And that's what I believe. That's why I don't really fancy these hypotheticals of what if this happened, what if that happened. Because quite frankly, if Donald Trump won re-election in 2020, I don't think the Democrats would be so silent about it. And I don't guarantee it, but I would bet a small amount of money, because I'm Jewish, that the AOC wing and the Ilhan Omar would have definitely contested the results.
I roll.
Oh, that one took me a second. I roll. Well, I just feel like the Republicans currently, a shrinking amount of Republicans are basing their ideals around a person, but the Democrats are basing their ideals kind of like the anti of what we're doing, right? Not in the sense of, oh, you guys base everything off ideals. No, you guys are really basing the party, and this is how you won in 2020, was off of an anti-Trump, right?
All right.
Both
I
parties
largely agree with the last point about the election. I think we really leaned into the Trump thing, and then once we got in power, we did Biden proposed very, very good things. But we got to wrap it up. Obviously, I think you missed a little bit of my criticism or something, but that's okay. And it's more about the feeling like the actions were so reprehensible you can't support them, rather than like, well, we got to move on. But I hear your response to that, and I very much appreciate you coming on. That was a lot of fun. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. Is there anything you want to plug or anything?
Is there anything I want to what?
Plug. No worries if not.
I mean, I can't think of anything, but it's also been a long week and it's only Tuesday. So you can ask me again in a little while. I might have an answer, but
It's only Tuesday. Brutal. All right. You the man. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
all right, thank you. I'll see you soon.
Cool. Bye.